You know, whenever I'm late to an event, people love to ask me, oh, is the subway behind schedule? This time we got a 6-passenger at West 4th Street, so I apologize to everybody for keeping the ceremony and wonderful colleagues waiting. Listen, thank you for joining us. I'm Jan Lieber, I'm the MTA Chair and CEO, and I'm here with Demetrius Critchlow, the President of New York City Transit, Senior Vice President of Buses, Frank Annacaro, Chris Pangilinan, who runs Operations Planning, and we've been joined by two of our great leaders in transportation, the Borough President of Queens, Donovan Richards, who's been an amazing partner in this process. All right.
Wow.
My sign we're in.
Is that MTA staff?
That's some MTA staff, but it's also a sign we are in his house. And my friend, the New York City DOT Commissioner, Adonis Rodriguez. There we go. There we go. All right. It's all your house, Commissioner. Everywhere is your house. Listen, today is a big day for Queens and for the MTA. It's a day that has literally been years in the making. After a lot of back and forth that was conducted with Queens riders, with elected officials, and with community stakeholders, we're now putting out the final version of our proposed Queens Bus Network redesign. The MTA board is actually going to vote on it sometime this winter in the next couple of months. Listen, we're thrilled to have some of, as I said, great elected partners. I don't see a couple of the folks who I was told would be here, but who have been key, and I just want to acknowledge State Senator Leroy Comrie, represents Southeast Queens. He's a great partner to the MTA. He's also chairman of the key committee of jurisdiction in the State Senate, the Corporations Committee, and he has been with us every step of the way. And the city council member representing much of Southeast Queens, who's also chair of the City Council Transportation Committee, Selvina Brooks Powers. So those have been important players as well. Listen, creating a faster, better bus system has been a personal priority of mine since I became the MTA chair. I always say buses are the engines of equity. They're the way, and it's especially true in Queens, but they're the way that people of working class neighborhoods and middle class neighborhoods get around to access the rest of the city for jobs, for education, for health care, for everything the city has to offer. So we have to have a bus system that is actually mass transit, that is faster than walking. This borough is home to the largest bus network, 800,000 daily riders. They deserve a system that gets them where they want to go and where they're trying to go, rather than on routes designed based on where jobs and schools and retail were back in 1950. That is literally the system that we have now, and we have to change it. The Queens Bus Network redesign is going to be a tremendous step in that direction. More frequent, more service, more direct, and better connections, especially to the rail system. The latest version increases the number of bus routes to 124. It's a double-digit percentage increase over what we have today. And more important, 20 routes have increased frequency and have expanded hours of operation, with a focus on key streets like those right here: Union Turnpike, Merrick Boulevard, very important in Southeast Queens, the western sections of Northern Boulevard over in Western Queens. And this is one of my focal points, we have added 25 rush routes that are specifically designed to connect Queens riders to the rail system. Remember, Queens is underserved based on population by rail, subway, and commuter rail. Queens developed after the subway system construction took place. And the result is we got to connect people to the rail system much better. These rush routes are going to be a game changer for people who rely on two-step transportation, bus to rail. Overall, there's something in this for every rider. And that's the point. This has been a customer-driven process from the jump. We've held more than 70 outreach events, and that's just in the last year alone. And folks are going to get another chance to express their point of view at a town hall that will going to take place before the MTA board does its vote. I want to thank everybody, and a lot of you here, who's been working so hard on this Redesign for years now. Chris Pangilinan, who heads operations planning, his predecessor, Judy McLean, but especially Dorian Stakem, Kate Contino, Lucille Sondheim, Megan Artist, Luke DePalma, you and other folks at the MTA have been shoulder to the wheel. This has been, let's not forget, we had a version of this which we learned a lot from before COVID, and it didn't, and it wasn't so friendly because people were not thrilled with that earlier version of the redesign. But we kept at it, and we kept listening to people, and you guys did an amazing, amazing job. I want to, of course, acknowledge the advocacy community who are represented here in part by Lisa Daglian, who's the executive director of the PCAC. Lisa, and others of our advocates. Team MTA has a lot of great supporters out there in New York, and many of you are here, and I just want to give you a tip of the hat. You guys are proving every day, all of you that I just mentioned, that New Yorkers are problem solvers. That we look at a situation as complicated as the biggest bus system. I mean, this bus system is as big as virtually every other major city in the United States, just Queens. If buses are slow, we got to find a way to speed them up. The MTA takes that to heart. It is a passion project. We know we need to deliver better bus service. We're going to work with City DOT and the elected officials and the communities, and we're determined to get it done. So with that, let me turn it over to the handsome and charming Demetrius Critchlow.
So yeah, as the chairman said, today is a special day for us. It started 5 years ago. An effort was set in motion to improve upon bus service for 800,000 riders of the service in Queens, and no other borough other than that of Queens needs it to this extent. They're completely reliant upon it. And the prior network, which we were working off of, had routes that followed old trolley lines. The reality is communities have changed over time. And over the decades, what customers expect from us has changed as well. And now, Queens borough alone has grown to the extent where it rivals the third largest bus network in the country, Chicago. That tells you what we do. So back in 2019, we embarked on a mission. Proposals followed by public feedback, and then more feedback, more proposals, and then more feedback, each step of the way considering the comments from our electeds, from customers, from stakeholders, 70 public engagements, as the chair said. They told us the secret sauce was in 4 things: more reliable service, faster travel, better connections, and simplified service. So after much time and effort, we're confident that we got it nailed down. I think we've reached a sweet spot. Let's talk about specifically some of the advantages for those 800,000 riders. So first, Queens gets the money, right? Over $30 million is being invested in improving service in this borough. This plan includes 17 new local routes. It brings better all-day frequency to every corner of the borough, and it will speed up trips with more direct routes and better spacing between stops. We're improving service to airports. The new Q80 Limited improved service to JFK, and the new Q33, Q90 will add service to LaGuardia. This makes it easier for both travelers who are commuting, but also for those who work there on a daily basis and need this service in order to get to work. We're improving connectivity to make it easier for riders to get to and from the subway and Long Island Railroad. Routes like the Q98, which gives better interborough connections between Wyckoff and Flushing. And what better way to take advantage of our 100% accessible bus network than to make connections to more subway stations that have ADA accessibility? This just scratches the surface of the improvements that this plan offers. So I encourage you to visit our website, mta.info, and get as much information about the plan as we can to see how it benefits you. I want to say thank you, in addition to the folks that the chair mentioned, to the many folks in operations planning who continually work for this for years, to be able to get to where we are right now. The patience, the time, the connections, the relationships that were built, forged, some broken, but ultimately to be able to get a product that everyone is proud of. With that, I will turn it over to the Senior Vice President of Buses, Frank Anacaro.
Good afternoon. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Thank you, Mr. President, Borough President. As Jano and Demetrius mentioned, the proposed final addendum is a culmination of hard work and collaboration by our MTA colleagues, and it's exciting to finally get here. Like the successful redesigns in the Bronx and Staten Island Express service, this redesign is an iterative process, and we carefully considered and incorporated valuable feedback from our elected officials, our customers, stakeholders, every step of the way. The development of this plan could not have been made possible without the continued coordination and insight from our labor partners and operators. Special thanks needs to be out to the following unions: the ATU 1179, 1056, 1081, and a TW Local 100. And it doesn't end with the redesign. As Demetrius said, Queens gets the money, Queens is going to continue to get the love, okay? We're going to continue to work with our partners in DOT and others to continue to improve busways and bus lanes, implement more automated camera enforcement, traffic signal priority, and accessible bus stops, and additional capital improvements in Queens, like the Jamaica Bus Depot, which we have broken ground on, and the future Jamaica Bus Terminal. And finally, the conversion to a zero-emission fleet will improve the quality for our bus passengers and the Queens community. I want to end by saying to the entire bus team, we are excited and ready to go. We'll be monitoring this service closely, and we're committed to a successful implementation. Thank you.
Thank you, Jano, and what a great day for Queens. And let me start by thanking your able staff who really have been with us every step of the way. Lucille, MTA staff, thank you so much. I know y'all heard a lot from Queens. There's at least 2.4 million opinions I deal with, and I know you had to deal with. Thank you to the Department of Transportation. Thank you as well, and to all of our partners. And thank you, Jano. And I really do want to thank the MTA, because often we will complain as electeds, as community board members, as local stakeholders about the lack of outreach. And I want to tell you that you went to the edge of the earth to make sure that you heard from everyone. Matter of fact, I remember right before the shutdown, being at a meeting and y'all almost tossed out the room. But I certainly had more here then, and we're here today. But what a great day to be here. And as Demetrius alluded to, you know, our bus lines have not kept up with the pace of growth in Queens. And you look at the bustling areas that are coming online, Long Island City, you look at Southern Queens, downtown Jamaica, Eastern Queens, as we look to redevelop the Creedmoor campus. You know, we're going to see more growth in the outer boroughs and places like Southern Queens and Eastern Queens, which are considered transit deserts, over the course of the next decade. So it's more critical than ever that we think ahead. And while this plan is certainly a big step in the right direction, the work is still not done. We still have a lot of work to build on. And I've often said, and I'll continue to say, that this is a perfectly imperfect plan. But what I would say is, Queens get the money. We're not gonna lose the opportunity to seize $30 million to improve our bus systems across Queens. And as Demetrius also alluded to, there were some things we really wanted to focus in on. You know, we have a $20 billion investment at JFK Airport as we speak, but it's extremely hard to get to JFK. So adding these additional lines are going to be key and critical, not only for tourists, but for the very people who run the airport. You think about the rush down Merrick Boulevard. If you come down Merrick Boulevard, as I do every day, you know, we need to speed these buses up for everyday residents living in transit deserts. So this is really about an investment in our infrastructure. And our bus system, and we've heard these complaints going back decades, and I know as somebody who lived in Far Rockaway, you used to have to get on the 113 or 114, that these buses were running like snails. That I often joke, I know many of you heard this joke, it's easier to get to Florida by plane to Manhattan by bus and train. I know you've heard that 1,000 times, but it's true for residents who live in the Rockaways and Southern Queens, and this step is certainly a step in the right direction. So as I've said from the beginning, this plan needed to be community-centered. I believe it is, and I will not knock the MTA for making every effort to really make sure we got this right. And as it was alluded to, there were some highlights, but there's a lot more in the queue. For instance, for residents in Bayswater, we're going to reenact the 22A as a pilot to get people to and from the A train as well. So with that being said, it's really a great day for Queens. I really want to thank all of my colleagues who've been here. I want to thank Michael Carlier on my staff, who really heard day in and day out and really tried to be a liaison between the electeds and the MTA to get this as right as we can. I won't say Queens get the money, but I'll say Queens get on the bus. Congratulations. Congratulations. Look forward to the next steps.
Thank you. So with Donovan, Rich, and I, you get 2 former members of the Committee of Transportation at the New York City Council. And so working with MTA has been, something that we've been doing it for a year before being elected. I would like to thank Chairman Llano and Transit President, also the Vice President, Annie Carroll, for inviting me to join them today on behalf of my Oregonians. Our buses help move hundreds of millions of riders each year. The majority of them are from working class and some from middle class communities. In Queens, over 50% of all residents rely on public transit for their daily commute. This is why it is more important than ever to make sure our transportation investments are improving accessibility, safety, health, and quality of life. The city has always supported small and large projects across the city, focused on making our transportation system more reliable, efficient, and accessible to all New Yorkers. And we strongly support the holistic effort of the Borough Bus Network redesigns to improve bus service through simplified routes and improved connections to important destinations. We have built a record amount of dedicated bus space in recent years, now totaling over 150 bus lane miles. No other city in this nation has built that number. Working alongside the MTA, this administration has made buses faster and more reliable for 680,000 daily bus riders with new bus lanes, expanded enforcement, especially automatic enforcement, and upgrade the existing design. In Queens, we have installed new bus lanes on Northern Boulevard, 21st Street, and we have made the busway on Main Street and Jamaica and Archer Avenue permanent. Together, the busways serve over 650,000 bus riders every day, speeding our buses as much as 50%. I want to remind everyone that our working class and middle class New Yorkers, they take the buses not only to go to school, not only to go to doctor appointment, but also they take the buses to go and shopping. Where we have bus lane is the increase of sales in our city. And yes, we had to readjust in some cases, but we want to be clear that most New Yorkers rely on our trains and our buses, as also in some cases they use car, and bicycle also is another mode of transportation. So thank you to Llano, the whole team, and the great Board Commission. And I want to thank Nicole Garcia, Jason, the whole team at DOT, and the bus unit for the great job that they do. 1 minute en español. Estamos aquí a nombre del alcalde Ray Gardens, bajo la administración nuestra, junto con la gobernadora Kathy Hochul, el chairman de la MTA Llano, los líderes de aquí como el presidente del condado de Queens, para anunciar que esta administración del alcalde apoya completamente el plan que se está presentando hoy para rediseñar el sistema de autobuses en el gran condado de Queens. Hoy también compartimos que en esta ciudad, con las líneas de autobuses que se han construido, hay 150 millas en esta ciudad. Es una forma de nosotros seguir trabajando para mover más personas más rápida y más seguro en los autobuses de esta ciudad.
Okay. Más rápido, más segura. We agree. And más. Vamos. Okay, I've officially entered the world of, with thanks to Commissioner, I'm almost like Madonna. I'm Chairman Jano. So let's keep that going. A little added celebrity something. Tim, are we on Q&A?
Let's do some questions. You come to Queens, you get the great Donovan Richards, and you start with Ryan Schwach from the Queens Daily Eagle right there.
First, fantastic. Thank you for being here. You've all said we've been here before, and you all sort of made the joke, we've heard from Queens, we've been here before. Since there will be another public hearing on this, what is it about this plan or where the process is right now that you feel confident enough that we won't be here again?
I think broadly speaking, the accumulation, like we've had all the 70 feedback, and we're comfortable now that we have listened to every different community and every different stakeholder. It doesn't mean that every single thing is going to be greeted with joy, because we are trying to move the bus system much faster, and that does mean cutting down in some cases on the number of bus stops. We have twice as many bus stops in New York per mile as the rest of America, and that costs us time, makes it the bus less of a speedy mass transit option. So we've made the hard choices, but we've also listened and added a lot of services and route changes specifically to address what we heard from people in Queens. And that's what makes us comfortable at this point, that we're ready to move forward, partly because we've worked so closely with key elected officials, but partly because we have now had a chance to actually factor in all the feedback from those 70-plus events. I hope that's responsive. Go ahead.
Yeah, and I'll give like a prime example of that. The Q9 was one of the lines that we heard a lot about in South Jamaica, Queens, and they were able to come back and really almost, I don't want to say keep it the same, but they heard from residents. So I've gauged a lot of the elected officials. Matter of fact, they were hosting roundtables here for, I feel like how many months here, every Friday with the MTA, just to get feedback, and those adjustments were actually made in a lot of the cases where there was a lot of pushback. So I'm relatively looking at the plan. I've spoken to colleagues from all parts of Queens, and I feel relatively good about where we're headed.
All right, let's move on to Dave Colon right there from Streets Blog. Dave?
So not to repeat Ryan's question, but we were here literally a year ago, proposed final redesign. In March 2022, this kicked off, and if the board isn't voting on it until sometime next year, you're probably looking at a 3-year process for the bus redesign if, I guess, this does go through, if this really is the final one. I mean, what does it say about this process, and what does it say about what's coming for the Brooklyn bus redesign, that this has taken 3 years on this? It's technically 5 since Andy Byford tried to do it.
Dave, you represent people who are passionate about the bus system. You speak to that community of New Yorkers every day, virtually every day. I think they want us to actually take into account what people who use the bus system and are passionate about it and dependent on it are telling us. And we needed to take the time to hear from all of the communities in this incredibly large bus customer population, and to factor it into a really complicated operations planning effort. Remember, we don't have an unlimited number of buses. We don't have an unlimited number of bus operators. Every change to a route has an impact on the schedule, complicated issues that needed to be worked through, and we did it. If we were standing here and we'd rushed through something and people were enraged, you would be asking a slightly different question. I think that the message here is we took the time to listen and to do the hard work to make sure that we were reflecting what we were hearing from the community, and we're proud of the result.
Is it done?
Yeah, I mean, I think it's fine. It's final. We're going to obviously, because in the spirit of this process, give another opportunity for the public to hear and give some more feedback. But we look at this as a finished product, and I know our elected partners understand that as well.
All right, moving to the West Coast, we've got Andrew Siff standing by from WNBC, New York.
Can you give us an example of one of the bus to rail routes that you talked about? And sort of built into that, why didn't a bus to rail route already exist when it would seem logical to an MTA commuter, you should be able to take the bus to the train?
Yeah. Let's just be clear. It's not that there are no bus to rail routes. What these routes do is they are like express to the rail and subway locations in a way that has not existed before. We have local buses. We have an express bus network that primarily ferries people, primarily, not exclusively, ferries people to and from job locations in Manhattan. What was absent was, in effect, an express system that we call the rush routes that get people who live a little ways from whatever the rail system is quickly to it so they can get to where they're going. Chris?
Yeah, thanks for the question. I think the key here is the strong connections to a lot of the major subway and rail hubs, like Jamaica, for example, or in Long Island City at Queensboro Plaza. So those station connections are going to be enhanced with a lot more bus connections to get people, for example, into Manhattan or throughout the area a lot faster.
I wanted to put on the record, Q10 is what I meant, not Q9.
All right, let's go to Evan Simcoe Bednarski. He's back here in the mezzanine. No questions. He defers his time to Samantha Liebman from New York One.
Thank you, Evan. On these rush routes, excuse me, are you going to try to effort bus lanes on them to make them even faster? And also, are you going to have to staff up on drivers to make this more successful?
Yeah, I mean, I'm going to let you talk about the rush routes. I'll just say the MTA hired 2,000 bus operators last year. We have 12,000 bus operators. We have actually done much better than the rest of the country in terms of getting bus operators back after COVID. We're always, it's definitely challenging, partly because the training period is significant, but we're hiring bus drivers all the time and very effectively. We hit our goals the last year or two. Chris, do you want to talk about rush routes?
Yeah, thank you. Seconding the hiring comment there from the chairman, but also for the bus lanes, we'll be working with DOT to add as many more bus lanes as we can, not just for the rush routes, but other routes as well, which enable us to operate much faster service and much more reliable service, absolutely.
All right, and now once again with a question for Chris Pangilinan is Lauren Glassberg of WABC.
Hi, Chris. Hi. Could you tell us what your favorite new addition is to the bus route map?
Sure. If I have to pick a favorite, I am a fan of the rush route system. I think this is a really interesting way that we can bring a lot of people who live maybe further out in Eastern Queens or other parts of Queens into where they want to go, whether it be Jamaica or other major centers, or maybe even connecting into Manhattan or Brooklyn. And I think this will be an exciting new option for folks who may have not had this before, and really stitch together the borough even tighter and really shrink the city for people. And this will be an exciting option that people will, I think, will enjoy when we launch it.
May I go off topic?
Question of the borough president.
Oh, sure. Do you have a favorite route?
I will say that as a Southeast Queens resident who used to have to get to the Rockaways from Springfield Gardens, the Q77 connection to the Q3 is obviously my favorite one. And not only that, just from I talked a lot about, because I co-chair the redevelopment of JFK, from that perspective of making it easier for residents to connect, also creates an economic opportunity for residents to get into the airport easier as well.
All right, one last question now. Lauren, you wanted to meander away from this beautiful topic we're doing here? All right.
Off topic would be for Jano, Mr. Chairman. Talk a little bit about the idea that congestion pricing is rolling out in a couple of weeks. There are folks on Staten Island who say it will harm low-income communities and will bring more traffic through that borough, and that would impact air quality as well.
I mean, respectfully, it's just everything that came out of the study that was done of congestion pricing proved that wrong. It proved that there's only like a minuscule minority of low-income people who drive to the lower Manhattan and Midtown Manhattan. Why? Because it costs $50 to park, among other things. So it is the tiniest imaginary community that's not really the issue here. 80% of people on Staten Island who come to Central Business District, I think it's more than 80%, take mass transit, and they will benefit from this, but so will drivers. Drivers who are wasting hours in traffic. Their time is worth money, and we think that they are going to benefit as well. And then last and not least, we are providing huge investment in Staten Island buses, the Staten Island Railway, which is the most highly subsidized part of our entire system of transit in the New York area. We provide the free ferry to Staten Island. We're trying to make Staten Island really advantageous for mass transit users to get where they want to go in Manhattan as well.
Do you think more people will drive through?
Again, the projections are there's always small impacts whenever you improve the road, change the roadway system anywhere. In New Jersey, they're building huge lanes expansions of the turnpike that are going to have huge impacts. Nobody's talking about that. There may be slight adjustments in how people come to the city based on congestion pricing, but the bigger benefit is everybody who has to come is going to spend less time in traffic, and the people who use mass transit, which is the majority, are going to have a better mass transit system.
Thanks, everybody. Thanks very much. And for the media who is here in-house, we're going to do that technical briefing up in room 200. We'll start in just a few minutes. Thank you.